The Prosperity 2020 movement is gaining significant momentum with the legislative session underway and the governor having already adopted the 66 by 2020 goal that was championed by the business community. Today we're joined by Bob Corcoran, who is the president and chairman of the GE Foundation, an organization that does a great deal to support education and health throughout the country. Bob, thanks for taking some time with us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here.
You spent some time this morning already at the Capitol up on the Hill and also with some business leaders here at the Chamber today. So I'd like to start with just sort of your impressions of how we're doing as an education, or as a state when it comes to education, specifically with sort of the goals and the momentum we've put towards improving education.
Perfect. I think there are three things that impressed me actually when I came here. And number one is the record of fiscal sustainability and responsibility by the state that follows through to education. So they've been able to get good results from the education money spent. That's a good thing. Second is the commitment of the state working on new college and career readiness standards to implement in the state. In other words, to help put in place an education system that strengthens the competitiveness of its children for jobs in the future. It's a great move. And third is really around the work of the Prosperity 2020, pardon me, particularly with the 66 method passed by the Senate. It's impressive. I'm not aware of another state in the country that has taken that kind of a step to focus on and put a goal for itself that it will have a higher qualified, ready to work, capable workforce and citizenry in that period of time. It's impressive.
You've talked a little bit today, especially in your remarks with the business leaders here at the Chamber, about the distinction from maybe a couple of decades ago when it was Utah versus Colorado or Utah versus Texas in as far as being competitive. And now you say it's really more about 50 states as one against the world, or Utah against the world. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's very clear. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was clear that the competition for jobs was Texas versus Iowa. It was Pennsylvania versus New York. It was Utah versus California. It was everybody trying to steal jobs from other states and trying to figure out how they do that. The challenge today is, and particularly evidenced by the National Governors Association when governors were meeting 5 years ago, they came to the quick conclusion by correlating on what companies were talking to them about moving businesses or investing. And what they found was that they were competing against the world. It was no longer Texas versus Oklahoma. This is about 50 states versus the world. And it is about having a high quality workforce, education competitively able to go and compete so that our economy, national and state economies, can thrive. And this, as a corporation, as a company, it's more than simply looking after GE's best interests, about getting good employees. That's one piece of it. But bigger than that is having a community of people who've got great jobs working in other places so they and their companies can buy our products. It's about having people have a strong enough lifestyle and a strong enough economy that they can afford to invest their pension funds in GE stock or to gift stock to their children for the future to help them grow a nest egg. It's that kind of activity with a strong economy that matters. And it can't be done simply by one state. It has to be done collectively by all 50 states.
I would argue only one point with you there. Having lived in Oklahoma, no matter what, it will always be Oklahoma versus Texas. That doesn't change. Okay. You've been in a number of capacities with GE throughout your career. So I want to ask you a question just as sort of a general business leader perspective. Seeing the effort that has been put into education in this state, or at least what has been done to get some momentum going toward improving and enhancing education in our state. As a business leader, if you were to look in at Utah now, whether you're considering on relocating your business or growing or expanding or potentially investing somehow in Utah, is the fact that we have started in this direction, is that impressive to a business leader to say this is a state that wants to make sure that it's investing in its next generation workforce?
It actually is a big deal. The movement on the HighQuality Standards in terms of college and career readiness is very good, but 46 other states are doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's necessary to compete. That's skin in the game. That's something you have to do. The work that the business community has done on Prosperity 2020 and the activity that on the first round by the Senate in terms of 66 by 2020 is actually distinctive. That is worthy of note by a big company. What it means is it's not simply looking after after the K-12 system. It's going farther and saying as a commitment, we're going to now look at the workforce that you need, Mr. Business Person or Ms. Business Person, and we're going to go and create that. That's a big deal. And you know, Utah has so many positive things going for it in terms of on the national scene for business and attractiveness. You've got 3 top 100 universities within a stone's throw in terms of their capability on educational programs and university level work. You've got some really good incubators on innovative businesses doing work here. You've got some joint ventures here from high-tech firms on semiconductor work that's kind of leading edge. You've got great work going on in the health sector. All of that combined says that this is a thriving community that is looking after the intersection of business and education and civil society, and how do we build that? That is a good thing.
So then I'm curious, what is it that Utah should do? What should we be doing in order to not just have the skin in the game and remain competitive, but to really gain ground on our competition?
I think a key way to accelerate that, there are a few things. Number one, really look at the governance structure. So how do you oversee some of the changes, both legislatively and also from the governor, that are being put in place? How do you look at the governance of assuring that this happens? And work with the local school districts, the local boards, and engage there. Number two is look at the opportunity for really accelerating the investment in Utahns. This is a big deal. You will thrive or waste based upon how capable is your workforce in the future. And the workforce isn't simply employed by GE or employed by Intermountain Health. It is people capable of creating new ideas, creating new companies, entrepreneurs, business people who create their own businesses and then employ others. This is a big deal. And it's going to be based on intellectual property, which is going to be based fundamentally on intellectual capacity. How do you think? Are you prepared? Do you have the discipline? Have you been educated in the right way? Have you really been taught to think and challenged and all of the things that education does? All the things that we as parents want for our children, we should want for all of our children in the community. And that means seriously look at the right kinds of investment ratios and look at it as an investment, not simply an expense. The third thing is quite simple. Look at accountability. Accountability to say, look, we're going to measure this and we're going to hold ourselves as adults accountable for delivering high quality outcomes. It's really simple. And if you think about the importance of measurement and accountability, no professional sports team can have a good year if they didn't know what the score was on the scoreboard. If you went to a basketball game here at the arena and they didn't put the score up and they didn't announce it, it would be a pretty boring game if they didn't tell you anything. Somebody once said to me, you could take a sport so mundane as bowling, and if you had to, many people love bowling, Friday nights and leagues and everything else, and if you just took and put a black screen on it down to 1.5 feet above the base of it, just put that 5 feet away from the toe line, and then you had people throw a ball. They couldn't see the outcome. They could only hear something that happened. Bowling would be the most demotivating thing in the world. Yet it's incredibly challenging and encouraging. So think about measures and outcomes and how do you score it. And look at that accountability to get better. The implementation, all the things that Utah is going to do with education are a great start. When you begin to implement them, they won't go perfectly. That's okay. Any new process in business that we do, any new product we go to introduce, there are always problems. It doesn't go as well as we thought, and then we learn. So the key is launch and learn. Start it, learn what you need to do better, measure that, then change it. See how that works the following year, and we'll get there. We owe it to our kids, we owe it to our state and our country. And I think, again, Utah's got a phenomenal opportunity here because you've done so many of the things right and have done such a great job around fiscal responsibility and around community, around culture.
Bob Corcoran is the president and chairman of the GE Foundation. Thanks for taking some time to be with us and to visit with our business leaders today.
Thank you for having me.